Hi, I'm Tim Faircloth.
And I'm Liu Jones. Welcome back to the sunny side of cruising, and as always, thank you for joining us once again on Cruise Lounge.
Thank you very much. A very boisterous audience today.
Lovely.
Look, thank you for joining us. Welcome back on board. Now, Jenny, a couple of episodes ago, I asked you what your favourite thing to do on board was, and your answer was?
Eat.
That's right. I have to agree with you. It's a very popular thing to do on board, and it's probably my second favourite thing to do on board.
Second? So what's your first?
Well, it's actually working.
Really?
I know, right? How exciting. But it's true, because to me, these days, having done a lot of cruising, I'm just so passionate about the shoreside experience. So pulling into an alluring port, you look out your window and I just get so excited about what's in for the day, and I head off and shoot all of my images, capture the destination for the cruise line. I just love it. That's what I'm passionate about these days. That's number one.
It's deep. It's poetic.
I know, sorry about that.
TED Talks by Tim.
Look, bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this.
Like
right?
Today's episode, hopefully?
Yes, exactly, today's episode. But look, that's what today's episode is all about. It's about the shoreside experience and working on board.
Ah, I see.
So for the first time, well actually no, he has been allowed out of his office.
We let him out occasionally.
But Pete's coming back out of his office and he's going to talk to us today with a very special guest of his, all about the shoreside experience and also their working relationship on board, because they both worked on board for many years. So he's about the shoreside, working on board, and I also have a guest here coming to the lounge to talk about the embarkation process. He's a friend of mine, so it's going to be good.
Sounds exciting.
So seeing as though I got to choose two of my favourite things to do on board, you only got to choose the one. What's your second indulgence?
Well, look, after I've had my buffet breakfast, I might head over to the day spa to burn off those calories with a massage.
Because they rub those calories right out of you?
Exactly, that's how it works.
Well, look, how about you head off to the spa today and leave this episode to the boys?
That's all?
That's all? Oh. Although we might send the cameras up to see how you're going later on.
Oh, can we not?
And look, and we'll finish at the bar with a drink for the boys. So you go have the rest of the day off.
You don't have to tell me twice. I'll see you in next week's episode.
Perfect. See, enjoy.
I will.
Welcome back to the Cruise Lounge, and I'm here with my good friend James COUGHLAN. Welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks Peter. How cool is this? Been back at sea together after so many years?
Yeah, so full disclosure, James and I worked on board the old Crystal ships. Well, they weren't old, they were brand new, ultra luxury, sailing around the world, and we did that for many years together in the Shore Excursion department.
That's right, one of the greatest bosses I ever had.
Wink, wink. Now, I've got James on board today to talk about Shore Excursions. So, first of all, you're now on land working as a land program manager, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
For a company called Intercruisers. So, who are they?
So yeah, Intercruisers are a global ground handling company. So we assist the cruise industry, and we're the third-party supplier for the cruise industry when they reach port of calls around the world, organising their shore excursions, land programs, hotels, and all the nuts and bolts that make the destination come to life.
Okay, and so you obviously represent here in Australia?
Correct.
And how many ports are you around in Australia?
So in Australia, I'm responsible for all of the land product that takes place when the guests set foot off the ship. And believe it or not, we have over 50 ports of call in Australia now that can or are working on accepting cruise industry.
It's grown, hasn't it?
Amazing.
Particularly with new additions like Port of Eden that I know you do a lot of work with as well. So today's episode's all about understanding tours. One thing I really wanted to understand, because from your expertise, everyone thinks a tour is just pre-designated.
Just happens.
Just happens.
Yeah.
So the question is, how does a tour get put together? What's all the ingredients involved?
Well, that's the success, because we want the guest to think it just happens. But behind the scenes, there's so much that takes place. You know, it's making sure first and foremost that the guests have a great time. These days, the cruise vessels are amazing, but I personally believe that it's the destination that a lot of people book cruises for, and we've got to make sure that the guests can maximise their time out there. So, working with the local suppliers, working with the local governments to make sure it's a safe experience, make sure it's an exciting experience, make sure the guests are all going to have a great time.
So we understand now more of the ingredients in a shore excursion. I'd love an example of, let's say we're going to the port of, let's pick Brisbane.
Okay.
Right, and But you've got various ships coming in. You've got your Carnivals, your Royal Caribbeans, your Celebrities. So they're different brands, different personalities. They each require their own unique sense of Brisbane. So how do you create or change tours to cater for each one?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. You know, it's each brand that comes in has a different clientele. You know, some guests may have been to Brisbane a dozen times before and they want to do something different. But then you've got some guests that haven't been before, so they want to do their stock standard things. But it's doing things and creating them differently to match up with the experience on board the ship. You know, if a certain vessel has drinks included at lunch, we've got to replicate that shoreside so that it's a nice transition, because we are an extension of the brand that's coming in.
And that's a really important point. The experience you have ashore is supposed to be
100%.
aligned and resonate with the same experience, and you're responsible for that. So you'd have to know the brands pretty well as well.
Oh, without a doubt, we work so closely. Yes, they are our clients, but we work so closely in making sure that the guest experience is the best it can possibly be.
Okay, so James and I, we can actually sit here and talk quite a lot. James would probably do it for 2 hours and I'll do the one. We know James. But what I've done in preparation, because we sometimes get a little too technical, we just talk. So what I did is I actually posted out to over 1,000 people and asked them, what's your questions about shore excursions? Okay. So I'm going to ask you.
Oh, look out.
We're going to do a little education thing. So I've got one here, which is why I've got.
I'm glad you've got the heads up.
Little paper. So the first one in is, and I thought it was really basic, they said, what's a shore ex? Because we use the term a lot. So what is a shore excursion?
Yeah, a shore ex is a shore excursion. So that's any experience that is booked through the cruise line's website or on board from the Shore Excursion team to experience something ashore. So the official tour product, I guess you could say.
And there used to be half day and full day, but you're saying now that's sort of becoming a little bit more obsolete.
Yeah, look, a tour needs to be as long as it needs to be. If you're visiting a certain site and you're going on a photography walking tour, you don't need to drag it out to be 4 hours long if it only needs to be 1 hour. So it's a short time people have in the port of call, so we want to maximise those times.
And that's the key, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
You're not there for a couple of days. Well, some cruise lines are. So we've got also, you've got your evening tours. And also overland tours, which we've had a great time doing ourselves.
We have had huge success, and it all came from our time on board, where we did a lot of these overlands through Africa and whatnot, which were amazing. But they have really spread around the world. You know, we do a lot of overlands, multi-day touring, pre and post.
So you do a lot of Ezrock.
Oh, absolutely. That's on our portfolio massively.
So here you are on a cruise, you know, day at sea, and tomorrow you're going to be in Uluru.
Yeah, and there's a few ways to do that, with either arriving into Australia and spending a few days pre your cruise, where we organise programs booked through the cruise line, which is great, or at the end of your voyage, same thing, you can do the program. But we find, especially like the longer cruises, the world cruises, guests are happy to get off the ship for 2 or 3 days, get off the ship in Brisbane, go to Ayers Rock with some of your fellow cruisers, with a tour guide and tour director that is knows the brand and knows the expectations, and go and experience some of these sites.
Some of my best experience have been on overlands. You
Amazing.
know, Rovis Rail across Africa, Ngorongoro Crater, Okavango Delta, Sisuvlei, Cappadocia.
Overnights Antarctica.
Yes. Oh, we had a good life, didn't we? All right, so we've got half day, full day, narrow tours. We've also got pre, post cruise, evening tours, and we've also got things called transfer. So what's a transfer?
The transfer, so that's again booked through the cruise line. So that's either a transfer from the airport directly to the ship, embarkation point, or to the hotel, or from the hotel to the ship as well.
And sometimes sold as a tour or so. But there's also a transfer. So if you're coming into Civitavecchia and you want to get into Rome, you can take a transfer into Rome and spend the day on your own, and then come back with the same.
And that's for those guests that necessarily don't want to be on a tour the whole time. You know, if we used to do the train into Berlin, and you could just take the train ride and then be on your own in Berlin, and then meet up at a certain time. Again, with that confidence that it's organised through the cruise line, you're not getting forced to do a tour, but you still have that option in place. It's
excellent. So I think we've covered there's so many types of shore excursions, and then they've got to be personalised for different experiences. So I've got here one of the questions: how large?
Oh, so the experience can be anything from one person, for that flexibility of a private arrangement, all the way up to exclusively booking out the Opera House and doing a performance for thousands of guests.
Actually, we've done quite a few World Cruise events together as well, when you've got over 1,000 people, but you obviously stagnated, and actually we used to do the military tattoo, remember that?
Exactly.
In old Edinburgh. But tell me a little bit about private tours.
So private tours, it's for those guests that, let's use Russia for an example with the Hermitage Museum. you might want to visit the museum in a short, quick touring experience on a 3-hour tour, or you might have a master's degree in artwork and you really want to spend some time at that attraction. So a private tour gives that flexibility, gives you the option to work with your tour guide and driver to make your day as you want it to be.
I mean, we used to have a lot in Russia, didn't
Yeah,
we?
it's fantastic.
Hundreds. And also a great option for families if you're buying a collective purchase of tour tickets. It's not a bad idea to check into the price of a private tour just with a van, a guide, and for the family.
And also for those guests that maybe have a few challenges with their walking and how far they can walk with before restroom breaks and everything. So that adds that flexibility piece in as well.
All right, the next question is everything exclusive in a shore excursion?
Not necessarily, and that's not a bad thing. You know, if we've got a tour in Sydney and there's a lunch included, we could take everyone to a hotel ballroom and set up a buffet for lunch, or give the guest opportunity to walk the streets in Circular Quay and the Rocks and experience a nice Aussie pub lunch. So not necessarily, it's created to provide the best guest experience. And
sometimes what I found hard through the years is when you're organising a restaurant venue for your luncheon, for your tour, you can never replicate what is actually being done on board.
It's so hard,
So it's very, very hard. Why book a cruise line excursion? So obviously there's other options. You can go online and just purchase something. I tell you what I know. They're not going to show up sometimes, or the quality is great. But I mean, that's some of the benefits of booking with a cruise line, isn't it? There's guarantee.
Yeah, well, again, 100%. The cruise line have some very, very tough criteria for us tour operators all around the world, and we have to live up to such a high standard. You know, it's safety. You know, it's making sure the experiences are all vetted, that they are the very best that they can possibly be. Insurances. You know,
and so you would have a long history of operations with that cruise lines. You've tweaked here and here, so the tour program is getting better and better, and so more and more on a line. So it's a long existing relationship you've got with them.
100%. And like us as a company ourselves, we've got a global team that focuses on the insurances, the animal welfare policies, the sustainability piece. You know, that's so important for anybody booking things now. But I think one of the big things is creating something different, things that people can't Google. You know, coming into a port of call and providing something that people didn't even know existed, it's quite exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, and even when we used to be on board, part of our job was we would have to go out ashore,
Shame,
and scope new ideas, new restaurants, and creating something quite innovative, which is always exciting. Here's a question: if I'm late for a tour departure, what do I do? Will it go ahead?
Well, if you know you're going to be late, it's probably better to communicate that before the tour is set to leave, because as soon as that time hits, the tour has to depart.
Yeah, so when you say communicate, the best place would probably be in the arrangement area, because all the tours meet the different parts of the ship, don't they?
Yeah, or if in doubt, you know, hit 0 and talk to the reception or the telephone operator to give you some information. But these tours are run like clockwork, so if they do get off to a late start, then they could possibly come back late, and the captain will not want those tours coming back late.
Used to happen to me all the time. I used to call the captain because I used to be out on tours and always running late. It could be traffic or something. Captain, it's Peter. Oh, Peter, you again. How late are you going to be today? I said...
That's a terrible accent. Captain Giz is going to freak out at that,
I don't know,
I'll tell you.
I think it's part Norwegian.
I'm not sure what that is.
Actually, it should be Finnish. Totally.
It should be finished. This should be finished.
No, but at least, you know, we're telling them. So what we would do is either cut a portion of that tour so that we do get back on the right time if we have to leave straight away, or it might be just idling up the coast to the next port so the captain can wait 30 minutes. But there's the difference of being on a cruise shore excursion or taking some rogue internet option, because my next question is what happens when you return to the ship and you're late?
Yeah, it's gone, and most of the cruise lines now with their operators have technology that we track where the tours are at all times. So it's not the last minute we find out the tour's going to be late. Yeah. We know in advance, so we can make those plans.
And so the procedure, if you are just going ashore independently, and you're seeing that beautiful ship sailing away, you go, "That's beautiful. Hey, that's my ship." So what happens in that situation with the port authority? They get there.
If you miss the sailing before the ship departs, they do lots of checks and balances, and they will know that you're not there. So your likes of passport and documentation would be offloaded to the local port agent, and then the port agent would be there to liaise with you to.
So you're not alone.
You're not alone.
So that's what your company would provide.
Oh, we provide port agency,
Yeah.
yes, but there's lots of companies that do that,
Yeah.
and so you're not left high and dry, but you do miss the cruise the rest
Yeah,
of the
and
voyage.
so they arrange you to get to the next port. Correct. Just hope it's not too far away because you're paying for it. Couple more. Minimum age for tours. Is there one?
Absolutely. It's like anything, there's going to be restrictions and requirements, but that's the benefit of booking the onboard Shore Excursion program. It's all documented. It's on their website. If in doubt, check with the onboard team. They're very knowledgeable as to what destinations they're visiting to answer those questions ahead of time.
I used to get one all the time where they would ask, can I leave my kids on board while I go and do a tour? And most cruise lines are pretty good with that because their youth camps and programs are open through the day, as long as they're 3 to 17. I think Carnival might be a little bit different with the 2, but you need to check with the cruise line. But generally they're okay as long as they're part of the program. Some do ask that one parent stay on board, but you'll have to check with the cruise line. It's a tough
Yeah,
one. I mean, it's a good question.
I take everything off the ship.
It's funny how the parents just want to get away. A couple more. Meals and dietary requirements. Excuse me, that's actually a very common one. Can you cater? So you've got a ship coming in, you've got 1,000 people out on tour. How early do you need to know so you can organise with your local restaurants specific requirements?
Yeah, I think if anyone's got any dietary requirements, let the ship know, either before you get on board and book your tour or when you meet the onboard team at the start of the voyage. They let us know. But most importantly, it's all well and good for you to tell them that it's happening, but make sure you tell your tour guide. Make sure you tell the person that's going to be with you on the day.
That's a good point.
Make yourself known, because there can be a group of guests on that experience, and they won't know you and know your requirements. They'll know of your requirements, because that would have been passed,
they wouldn't
passed
know who
on.
you are.
They wouldn't know who you are. So make yourself known at the start of the experience, and then it's generally flawless.
Excellent. Last one. This is an unusual one because it happens in some parts of the world. What's the difference between ship time and shore time?
Yeah, that must be very confusing for
So
some people.
let me just explain. As you're walking down the
Oh,
gangway,
that's what you asked me to explain.
I'm
It's a Peter show.
I'll give you the scenario. You give me the solution.
Okay, there we go.
So as you walk down the gangway, there is often a timepiece located at the gangway to tell you what time it is.
A clock.
Timepiece, because we're going digital now, and you're so archaic. But sometimes it's different than the actual time when you're like the actual time.
Yeah, it drives me crazy a little bit. Like when we were at sea, we always used to, if the ship was arriving to a port that was a different time zone to the previous port, they would have a 1 hour back or 1 hour forward time change at 2 o'clock in the morning between those ports.
While you're sleeping.
While you're sleeping, or in the crew bar. But an example in Australia, Darwin and Adelaide have half-hour time zones. So if you're coming from a Queensland port or a New South Wales port and coming down, that half-hour time zone can be very confusing. Some brands, I'd say most brands that visit Australia, do change the onboard time to match local time, but some of them don't. So they might think their tour's leaving at 8:30 in the morning, but it's in fact 9 o'clock local time. And us as local agents have organised it on local time. So it does get a little
very
bit confusing
confusing.
very, very quickly. So if it is a port with different times, yeah, make a plan, because your phone will automatically update. A lot of these timepieces Peter's talking about will automatically update as well.
Back in my time.
But make sure that you write it on your arm or something, because again, if you miss the ship, you will miss the ship. And be stuck somewhere with half-hour time zones, which is...
And sometimes the reason is maybe they're spending the whole 2 weeks at a certain time zone, but there might be one exception, one port that might be an hour difference. So rather than changing it all, they'll just keep it. It doesn't happen often, but it was a good question that came through actually. How'd you feel? Did you feel you passed that test?
I think so.
Excellent. You get rewarded.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
All right, so I'm going to meet you up or down in the crew bar later.
Perfect.
Or up, I'm not quite sure where the crew bar is on the ship, but we'll work it out. In the meantime, let's go to Tim, who's got a friend of ours, Matt, who's going to explain about the embarkation process.
Welcome back. Thanks, Peter and James. That was great. Now, look, I've got a guest here that if you've cruised out of Sydney in the last 8 or 9 years, you probably may remember his face. It's Matt Halloran, a friend of mine, who actually is part of the team that does the embarkation, disembarkation process at the Overseas Passenger Terminal and White Bay in Sydney.
Yep.
So welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice being back on board, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It's been a long time. It is nice.
Now, look, something else that people may not know about Matt, and I certainly know because I'm trying to catch him, is your CLIA accreditation. So Matt happens to be the #1 highest trained person with the Cleo Training Academy in Australia. So he knows his stuff. I think I'm number 13 or 14. I'm trying to catch Matt, but it's very hard. So that experience, all that passion you have for cruise, surely must resonate into your job, helping the guests with their embarkation, disembarkation, and the visiting guests from overseas.
Yeah, look, I love it. I've been doing it, I guess, probably for about 8 years or so, just both at White Bay and at the Overseas Passenger Terminal. And it's just great to be amongst the guests and just sort of at the start of their experience and at the end of their experience and just...
Yeah. And you do love it. You know, when you're there, I know that if I've got a problem, I can go to Matt and he'll sort it out for me. But when you are doing your... I wanted to find out about the differences between the cruise lines and their guests.
Yep.
So let's say you're doing a turnaround for, not turnaround, a port day for a ship, a luxury ship on the World Cruise,
Yep.
you know, versus someone coming off, you know, a local cruise. There's obviously a difference between the guests, and your role would obviously change dramatically. So how does your role change from embarkation to the port days?
Well, yeah, embarkation is getting people on the ship at the start of their cruise and getting them off at the end of their cruise. When you have visiting ships, that turnaround doesn't really happen. They're actually visiting the city or visiting the port. So your operation changes. You're basically more a support role to get them out on their shore excursions, look after them at the pier and all that sort of thing. There are sometimes a few people that do get on and get off the ship, and so you're sort of assisting with transfers and things like that as well. So the type of guests that you get are quite different between the two.
I imagine they would be between the cruise lines for sure.
Yeah,
You have some cruise lines, some particular ships visiting you. I've seen you mention on Facebook before saying that the guests from this particular ship are lovely. So, you know, whereas you don't mention that on other ships, but you know, there must be differences, eh?
Look, there are differences, and it varies from cruise to cruise as well. I mean, even the same cruise line, if it's on a shorter cruise, like doing a 3-4 nighter weekend sort of cruise,
yes, it would
the
differ.
guests that you get are quite different to what you've got for your 12 nights South Pacific, or 8 nights South Pacific. So
of course, different age groups, different.
Yeah, there are differences right through. I mean, your 3 nighters, you get a lot more. People that are going for celebrations, hens nights, milestone birthdays and things like that. So your atmosphere, I guess, at check-in is a lot different.
It would be, yeah.
To what it is when they're...
It'll create its own sense, its own little, I guess, a group of problems that will come with, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's being part of the turnaround team. It's very much teamwork. You find that everything sort of flows on. So how you had your morning with the debark or the disembarkation of the cruise before, if that doesn't run well, that's going to flow into your embark, because everything is sort of very regimented, very timed out, and you're relying on a lot of other sort of aspects of it. So your porters and your things like getting the bags off the ship and getting them in the luggage hall to get collected and things like that. So one little thing goes wrong, it compounds right through the day.
I imagine it would, yeah. And
once you get to embarkation, you've got queues out to see the key right out to the...
Well, overlaps as well. I know guests don't go on while guests are coming off, but while the guests are coming off, the other ones are arriving at the quay and they're offloading their luggage, and you've got queues of people and you're trying to keep them, you know, there's a lot of logistics that go involved. So back to a port day, so you've got the World Cruise guests coming in. How important do you think your role, like I know experience. I'm getting off the ship in Civitavecchia, and the first person I see is your equivalent in the Port of Rome. And if they're happy, if they're helpful, if they're beaming with enthusiasm, it just makes my experience so much better. So, are you trained to kind of give that experience to the guests?
Look, I think that comes down to an employment thing with the companies that do this sort of work. Employing the right people to start with. You've definitely got to have that, I guess, that customer service sort of mentality or personality that, the guest experience is above everything. I mean, it's an extension of the cruise line, and we are contracted to the cruise lines.
Much like James and Peter were saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is an extension
and it's very
of the
much
cruise.
the same sort of thing, whether it's turnaround or whether it's a Shore Ex thing. I mean, the turnaround in some ways is more important, because that's the first thing that people come to a cruise they want a seamless experience to be able to get on and actually enjoy the cruise, and how that operates through the terminal, through the baggage collection, every sort of step of the way.
Totally. The first experience, we've all had a few bad ones, and it does. You get on board and you're feeling a bit, it wasn't so good. So it is very important. Yeah. Good stuff. And all that knowledge that you do have with your clear training must help. If a situation arises, I mean, you know your way around a ship. So you're going to get questions because you are an extension of the cruise line. So you're going to get passengers asking you all sorts of questions about on board, right? I would assume. You
do, and yeah, sometimes even at embarkation, you sort of, a lot of times you get asked the questions. You're like an information service before they get on.
I've seen it happen. They ask you all sorts of things. Yeah.
That background knowledge does help because I mean, as a travel agent, which I've been for quite a while, you do get that background of, I guess, how things work, and then with the onboard experience and working with the turnarounds and things, it sort of enhances that whole picture, like of all aspects of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I imagine your co-workers, if they get a tricky question, they'd be like, Matt, got one for you.
Sometimes I might not be able to be doing, I mean, the roles that I do as part of embarkation, it's not just check-in. I mean, quite often
I've seen you wheel people on board.
I've been doing wheelchairs, and sometimes I'm back in security, just making sure they load the bags on the things through the X-ray machines and stuff like that. So it's a wide and varied.
And you have medical emergencies pop up. Probably almost every embarkation.
There are sort of incidents that do occur.
Now, over the years, Matt, 9 years, you've obviously met and dealt with hundreds of thousands of people and helped them with their embarkation. So, do you have any top tips for getting on board quickly, smoothly, and to the buffet?
To the buffet, yeah. Look, there's basic things. Cruise lines these days will run what they call a staggered embarkation.
Yep.
So the best thing is,
which no one sticks to.
Well, it does affect the day. So we've had days where on some ships or on some cruise lines where it hasn't been necessarily prominent on their boarding pass for the check-in windows, and that's probably a few years ago now. They're a lot better with it now. But if everybody turns up at once, we're shot for the day. Yeah. Because that's where you get your queues through the
it's not nice for anyone.
You got your queues out the door. So sticking to check-in times is very important. It helps us run the whole process smoothly, helps people get on quicker because they're not waiting in queues for so long because they're just staggered and running through. That's number one. Number two is always your documentation. Keep it in your hand luggage. Don't ever put it in your checked baggage. Because
they ask you that, don't they? When you drop your bags off, they always
do,
say to you.
And some people have what they call holiday brain. You turn up, you're not thinking about those sort of things. You just think, I want to get on the ship and all that sort of thing, and they forget their documents are in the bag. The bag goes on the ship, and sometimes it takes 2-3 hours.
Oh, what a pain!
To actually find that bag, retrieve it, get it off. Get the stuff out and then get them through check-in.
Meanwhile, you're sitting in the terminal waiting, so
Okay. Yeah. So passports and things, documents in your hand luggage. Make sure you turn up at the time that you recommended, and everything's going to run smooth.
Turn up with a smile.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be nice.
Absolutely.
All right, Matt. Well, look, thanks, mate. And look, no doubt I will see you again soonish.
Well, soon. Hopefully
down
sooner.
At the OPT or White Bay.
Yep.
Do you have a favourite? White Bay or OPT?
If White Bay was at OPT, it'd be
I
a
agree.
great facility.
Good answer.
It'd be a great facility.
Because White Bay is a great terminal.
Yep.
It's just in the wrong spot.
Yep.
There we go. I've said it. All right. Thanks, mate. Look, we're going to head up to the bar, down to the crew bar.
Awesome.
Up to the bar, crew bar.
Awesome.
We still don't know where that crew bar is, but we'll find it.
Is it up or down?
I don't know. It's over there. And we're going to have a beer.
Perfect.
All right, mate. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for coming in.
Awesome.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Remember the time where you used to Port Holland? Yeah, I'm not sure if we should.
Hey, boys.
Hey,
Matt.
welcome. Finally.
Thank you.
How's things?
Things are great, mate. Yeah.
Excellent.
Crew bar. I don't get.
You found it?
I don't know if I get to come down here.
It's up. There's a window over there.
It is up.
It is.
It is up.
It's a special ship on the cruise lounge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, good chat.
Yeah, no, it was great. Great to catch up. Hey, where's Jenny?
Jenny's at the spa, remember? Should we check on her?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's see what Jenny's doing.
Guys, excuse me.
Sorry, Jenny. That was a bit invasive. Anyway, look, she's having a good time. That's the main thing.
Looks like.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for coming in, James and Matt. A very insightful episode about Shore Ex and Embarkation. Great stuff.
Thanks for having us on board. It was great.
Thanks, guys. What a great catch up. If you've enjoyed yourself, don't forget we've got another episode airing next week. So I hope you can join us here at the Cruise Lounge.
Absolutely. Happy cruising, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Be like, oh. Sorry. Doesn't even notice. Doesn't even notice. I can't drink the prop water.
What are you
can I?
doing?
I'm thirsty.
We'll come and get a drink.
Fine.
Can I have one?
They would if my legs were as smooth as Peter's. Have you noticed his legs? They don't have hair. They feel as like smooth as my dog's belly.
All right, you ready? Testing 1, 2. Welcome to the Cruise Lounge and my bitch, James COUGHLAN.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It's great to be here with you again. It's good to see you wearing pants.
To Brisbane. So Brisbane is set. Everything is there, and you're going to create excursions.
Brisbane is there. It hasn't moved, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't
News just in. That's interesting on last week. Good night, huh?
Can't say Matt. Walk of shame.
Week of shame.
Jeez, have you been in this bar since last episode?
Still here! Woo!
Is it time to go home yet?
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget we've got another one next week, so hopefully you can tune. From all of us,